Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 15 of spiritual healthcare. It's good to be seeing everybody this morning. I'm glad you guys all could make it. Of course, tonight's a big night because we've got ritual, exorcism, and film and television, which is going to be starting tonight at 6 p.m. Mountain Time sharp. I can't wait to get that going. I can't wait to get the discussion going tonight. It's going to be fantastic. I'm so looking forward to being able to present that for you guys this evening, which is going to be really, really cool. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Got some really interesting topics today. Oh my gosh. So we got some really good questions, and I'm so looking forward to delving into them. I hope everybody is doing okay in the crazy of the coronavirus going on right now. Good morning, Shadow. Good morning, Patricia. I hope everybody is just they're finding their balance day by day, and everybody's just chilling out, using the processes and things like that. I've been seeing some interesting things going on over the last little while. I think there's going to be some really great live stream developments for you guys all here. Which is going to be really cool. I'll know more about that probably Monday-ish. So there should be more information coming out. There's going to be some new stuff for everybody, so that's exciting. Really exciting. So hello to everybody logging in. Hi, Victoria. And as I say, we've got some really cool questions today. We're going to be talking about some weird phenomena, and one of those being the presence of what people call the black-eyed children, which is always an interesting topic because it lends into a few other ones. So we're gonna chat about some of that too. So we gotta get into some of those questions today. I've got a really great reading for you guys, and an event a couple of events that's happening tonight that I'm gonna share with you. Apart from just ritual being this evening. Good morning, Des. There's another one this evening as well, which will be after that. So I'll share that with you guys too. So there's lots coming up, but I want to get into some of the questions. Because they're really good. They're really, really good. So the first one came from Ghost or Weird on Twitter, and I love this because, as I say, it's going to send us down a bit of a rabbit hole. Do you have any thoughts on the black-eyed kids? I remember being freaked when I first heard the stories back in the 90s. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably heard of the black-eyed kids, and it's been something that's sort of spun its own story since about 1980. And the funny thing is, it actually originated by reports being sent in to a sort of a Texas paper blog thing. And because it ended up on this mailing list, these two encounters got published, and then all of a sudden, all of these other people were like, oh my god, I've seen that too, and it started to spiral. So it ended up gaining a lot of popularity on a show called Monsters and Mysteries in America. I don't know if any of you guys remember that one. I really liked that show. I thought it was really, really good. Very interesting. Where they would talk about various bizarre phenomenon in the States and whatnot. And it was really great. And then a little while later, there was a pub in Staffordshire in the UK, and they ended up running this whole campaign around their haunted pub, and it focused around the center of the black-eyed kids. So it's kind of had this run in the press, but it hasn't stopped people from coming forward with stories and things like that. So the big controversy with this phenomenon, along with other phenomenon, is it real? Did it start with somebody who was just rolling with it and decide to create something, and then it got out of control? Or is it a phenomenon that people just noticed, and then all of a sudden it blew up, and we've got we've got more and more accounts of it? So it's interesting because the line here is very thin, and we see this phenomenon in a more current setting with things like Slender Man and stuff like that. So with the black-eyed kids, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with them, usually what's seen is a kid between about 6 and the age of 16. Sometimes they're in groups, and they show up, and they usually have just blacked out eyes. Their clothes are kind of off, like things are kind of weird. and they're said to, approach people, like knock on people's doors or approach them in public or whatever, and immediately people report getting this weird feeling from them, going like, oh, this is really creepy. There's something nasty about them, so people are usually report being very frightened of these. But here's the thing that's interesting, is it kind of blends into a couple of different theories. Of course, we have the theory that this was something that was completely made up, and now more and more people are seeing it just based on suggestion. But there's the other side of this too, which is oftentimes when we've got enough focus into an idea or focus into something that we believe is present, what's interesting is that there seems to be a way that our universe kind of creates this. And we talked a bit about this yesterday with the idea that the thought becomes the thinker sometimes. And when we've got enough focused energy into something, all of a sudden we kind of start manifesting this intelligence. And it's interesting because it goes back to, again, the problem that we were talking about a number of classes ago, which is David Chalmers' The Hard Problem. Is consciousness fundamental, which means it exists out here and our brain is translating it, or is it something that's emergent, which is coming from our brain outwards, and once the brain stops, consciousness stops? So we kind of have to start to wonder a little bit where even if this was something that was faked, back in the 1980s in the paper, has it been focused on enough that something maybe is coming out of it? It's really hard to say. But it's an idea where, just in the same way that people will focus in a certain way in their house, and all of a sudden things start to manifest, is it possible that we've created these as well? There's a very interesting experiment that came out of Toronto in the 1970s, and I actually ended up writing an article about it in Haunted Magazine, and it was called the Filip Experiment. And the Filip Experiment is really fascinating because it was a group of people from the Society of Psychical Research in Canada, some members of Mensa and things like that. And what they wanted to discover was whether or not they could end up creating an intelligence or an entity or something like that purely by making it up and focusing on it. And what they ended up doing was they got out all their history books and started to look up the old seances. They started to look up things like, what did they do? What was the setting? What was we don't know. How did they build these seances? And so for about 2 years or more, they sat there and it was a year. Sorry, it was a year. And they sat there and they meditated. They were sitting around a table. They meditated. And they couldn't get it, nothing happened. And then when they looked back on their papers again, because they thought, well, what the hell am I missing? And they realized that the one thing that everybody did at the seances was actually get pretty excited and happy. And they were, enjoying themselves. They had drinks and food, and they were, it was great. So they thought, man, maybe we're being too stoic about this. We've got to actually, get this, we got to get this party started. We can't just be sitting here all somber. And interestingly enough, within about 24 to 48 hours, stuff started to happen. They started having the table move on its own. They would come in and there would be items stacked on the table. They were getting knocks, like, they would ask a question, they would get a repeated knocks. And now what was interesting about this was that in order to create the entity that they were focusing on, they actually created a character by the name of Filip, which is why they called it the Filip Experiment. So they actually wrote Filip a backstory, and he lived in medieval times. He ended up involved in this murder, and there was this whole story behind who Filip was supposed to be. And they wrote it all out, and they talked about him like he was real until they firmly believed this guy was the real deal. So when they started to talk with Filip during the seances, and then they started adding this other factor, which was the joy that they were experiencing, having fun and being in this community of other people and meeting every week, they started to have stuff happen. And interestingly, the intelligence that they were talking with responded to the name Filip. Totally responded. So they ended up creating this very interesting situation, and they decided that they were going to repeat it again with a different group of people, completely different, having them do the same process, write up a new character, all of this kind of thing. And they created a character by the name of Lilith. So this new group creates Lilith. Same thing, she was a spy, and they gave her that like really juicy backstory. And so they ended up creating Lilith, sat down, went through the same process, and damn if it didn't happen again. So it was really fascinating, and some early research into the fact that, you know, wait a minute, are we actually the ones creating and manifesting? Can we create this phenomenon ourselves, apart from you know, experiencing our loved ones who have passed away and that kind of thing? Is there another area to this where, wait a minute, we also have the ability to project consciousness? It's interesting. So when we look at a phenomenon like the Black-Eyed Kids or Slender Man or anything like that, the fact that it is, you know, something that probably originated in the press or probably began to create this new, you know, or create a storyline for the public or something like that, it becomes neither here nor there, depending on whether or not there's been enough focus on what it is. You know, is it possible for us to create it? And it's an interesting thing. When it comes to a lot of negative entities and things like that, I've definitely seen my fair share of it. Which is why I'm always harping on the idea that our emotional state is and where our focus goes is so important, because we can actually add fuel to the fire, which is kind of interesting. So, as I said, I had to go back down the rabbit hole about this a little bit, because, you know, it's easy to write this stuff off and go, oh yeah, it's just, you know, it's press or whatever, and just ignore people's stories about it. But at the same time, you know, there's another angle to it that's kind of interesting. So the other question that I got last night was from Ross Thistle, and he emailed a fantastic question that I think is so prominent, and it's so prominent to what we just talked about. So he asked, I've had experiences while serving in Gagetown with the military. They always happen at night or very early in the morning, around 1 or 2 a.m. Why is that these paranormal experiences always happen in the dark? I never felt threatened by what I saw, and I do enjoy history and have an interest in the paranormal. So this is a great question from Ross, because it's a big thing. People always say, you know, why does this increase at night, or why does this seem to increase at night? And statistically, it actually doesn't. Statistically, paranormal experiences happen at all times of the day. People report them at all times of the day. The TV shows often like to, you know, go in at night, and, you know, people are running around in the dark and things like that, because it's a lot more spooky. But if I'm doing an investigation or something like that, the main thing that I'm looking for when I go to research a place is to be there at the time where the events have been reported. It's not a matter of going in the middle of the night if all the phenomenon's happening at noon, right? So you want to be there during the times where the most phenomenon's been actually reported, so that you can document it. But so why is it that things, you know, seem to get noticed in the evening or in the middle of the night? And I think there's a couple of explanations for this. One of them being, if your mind is quieter, right, which it is in the evening, because there's no crazy stimulus going around, and you're not bombarded with information, and your brain's not overloaded, you have the time to kind of sit back and be in a state of less resistance. We're paying attention to our environment, we're being a little more peaceful, we're just kind of chilling out a little bit, and we start to notice stuff a little bit more, right? So there's that. There's also the phenomenon of being in a hypnagogic state or hypnopompic state. So a hypnagogic state is that space where we're kind of slipping into sleep, and hypnopompic is when we're coming out of sleep. So when we're in those states of awareness, we have the potential of, you know, we're sensing things on a little bit more of a broader perspective. It used to be that when people were reporting things in this state of mind, that immediately it was chalked up to hallucination. But now different research is coming out. People like Christine Simmons-Moore and a few others are now saying, wait a minute, that's not always the case. Different areas of the brain are actually being activated. So it's really interesting. Ooh, Cosmic Vision Board, Victoria. I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's so good. So yeah, so when we're in this kind of state of mind, as I say, less resistance, more phenomenon starts to occur. We tend to get just more receptive at night anyway. If you ask any doctor or nurse or medical professional, usually if a condition or something like that is going to worsen, it usually happens at nighttime. So it's interesting that there's sort of this attachment to the dark and of course our state of mind as we either fall asleep, come out of sleep, or just are able to just turn our minds off just that little bit. So I think oftentimes when people are reporting this stuff, at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, this is usually what the case is. But from my experience, this phenomenon happens all the time, and it doesn't really have a set time period or anything like that. So that being said, I want to get into our reading today because it's really, really cool. And I also want to tell you guys about a really great to-do, especially for those of you guys who are into investigations and into the field mechanics of this. And I'll tell you guys about this after I do the reading, because eventually you guys can go and check it out and whatever. But I loved this, and I thought it was super applicable for today. It's from Birth Through Death, The Ethics of the 20th Plane by Albert Durant Watson, my great-great-grandfather. And for those of you guys just tuning in for the first time, this was all channeled stuff. So my great-great-grandfather was the scribe, and he was transcribing from a fellow named Louis Benjamin, who they firmly believe that he was translating that source energy. So so I'm going to read this to you guys because it's profound and it's beautiful. Do you ever stop to ask why there is so much beauty in the universe? It is the way the universe has of asking you to tune your life with the eternal beauty displayed all over the face of the great universe. The final difference between the emancipated plane on which I live and your physical world is this. You discover too quickly your limitations. You manufacture many limitations which you think exist, and as long as you think they exist, they are limitations. Here we find that limitations recede. We have limitations here, but not nearly the number with which you surround yourselves. Listen, you grow old too quickly. All of you, with hardly any exception. Why grow old? The body becomes weak. True, but you are not your physical body. You are an immortal. You are a soul. Don't manufacture, then, unnecessary limitations. One of the unnecessary limitations you manufacture is that when you reach 30 or 40 years of age, you make no more friends, and you even lose some of the friends you have. That is one of the most pathetic things on the earth plane. So it's such a great reminder to not only the fact that, we are connected, but during this time period to not lose touch with the people around us. Don't do it. Don't do it. We've got, it's easy to be, in isolation. Of course, we have to be at home right now. And that's something that none of us can avoid. But hey, look at us, right? We're building this fantastic community. It's wonderful, and there's so many things that we can be doing right now in order to be connected, not only of course to ourselves, but to our loved ones and things like that. So the to-do today is kind of about that. There is a company called the Shaw Academy. The Shaw Academy is offering free photography courses. And I love this because so many people, of course, photography, first of all, is such a huge staple in paranormal research. So that's a big thing. But also the fact that if we're looking to get into stuff like this, and you want to be able to go out and understand cameras, understand lighting, understand these photographic anomalies so that you can take a photo and actually understand the mechanics of things like light and moisture. And we talked about orbs and how they're a distortion of the focus and things like that recently. So you guys can go and check out this course because it's totally free. It's totally free, and it's long too. It's like a number of weeks. Like it's fantastic. So the Shaw Academy, if you guys are interested, I'm not sure what they're requiring in terms of equipment and stuff like that, but I think it's something you can probably just take online and learn about it, so that if you do want to branch into that side of the technical stuff, I think it's a really, really great way to do it. The other thing is processes. So tonight, after my show, Ritual, Exorcism in Film and Television, which is going to be on later this evening, after my show, there is going to be a global meditation. Global meditation. There's like 1 million people that are signed up for this. It's really cool, and it's all about healing just everything that's going on right now and disrupting the energetic pattern of the coronavirus and all of that kind of thing, and just getting ourselves into a state of alignment that we didn't have before this all started, right? So, being able to just get ourselves into the best state of mind we can, send out that healing energy, and getting ourselves sorted out so that we can make a difference in how we're projecting. So I've put the link up already on the Entity Secret Facebook page. It's really neat, and I mean, you guys don't have to. They ask you to do a number of things throughout the meditation. You don't have to. Just being able to come in and sit down and just be in that intention. Set an intention for that, and the meditation's about 20 minutes. It's at 10:45 p.m. So as I say, it's one of those things where you don't have to necessarily follow what they're doing. It's just being able to come in, set that energy and intention, and be at peace for a little while. And I thought that was super cool. So instead of an actual physical process I'm going to give you today, I encourage you guys to join this mass meditation, because I think it's going to be pretty cool. And if nothing else, you'll just feel better afterwards. So that's pretty good. So that being said, we got our health affirmations to do, because we can't forget that every day. So I want everybody to take a deep breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. There's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. Everyone take a breath. You guys, this has been our day 15 of spiritual health care. I hope I see you guys tonight on Crowdcast, because I am really excited about being able to present this with you guys and just go to town on this bizarre subject matter of exorcism and its history, and how all of these cases apply to everything that we've been talking about. And it's just there's so much to discuss about this subject. So, and we're going to be, as I say, going in and looking at evidence and photos and all sorts of things. We'll talk about the cases behind The Exorcist, the exorcism of Emily Rose, the Rite, all sorts of things. So this is going to be fantastic. Please get your tickets before the show starts, so that you guys aren't like, oh shit, we've got to try to log in and all of that kind of thing. So please be there before the start time of 6 p.m. Mountain Time. if you can, that would be great, and then you won't miss a thing. You know, come join in a little bit early. You can chat to each other, all of that kind of stuff as well, while you're waiting. So so try to be there as early as you can. This is on Crowdcast. Okay, so crowdcast.io. You guys will be able to as I say, interact, join me. You can ask a question. Crowdcast is so cool because it actually allows you to send in questions that I end up like getting on my screen. It's really neat. It's such a cool platform. So I'm super excited to be able to share this with you guys tonight. One thing I will say too, if for some reason when you're on Crowdcast tonight and the screen freezes or something like that, refresh. Hit the refresh button and it'll come back. Okay. So I'll post, the link is on the Entity Seeker Facebook page already, if you guys haven't done that yet. I am going to be spending most of my day prepping for all of this, so get your questions ready, and I will see most of you guys at least tonight, and we will get this going. So thank you all so much. Have an amazing afternoon. If I don't see you tonight, I will see you tomorrow morning on Spiritual Healthcare, and I will talk to you guys then. Okay, have a great day, guys. See you.